All
right. Good morning, everyone. We're now ready to begin our June Board of Directors meeting for the Albany County Business Development Corporation. I'd like to welcome all present and just do a quick roll call. Myself, Alan Alexander, present. Diana Ostrow's excused. Alan Michaels, present. Marcus is absent. Daniel Scarron,
Present.
Susan Petta.
Here.
And Lucas.
Good.
Okay, so we have a quorum. Excellent. With that, I'd like to review the minutes for our last meeting on March 17th. Has the board had a chance to review the minutes that were sent out this past week?
Yes.
Are there any edits, revisions, or comments on the meeting minutes?
No.
Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to approve the prior meeting minutes?
I'll move.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion on the minutes? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. I'll go through, we just had, as you guys know, the governance committee, and we reviewed our ABO compliance, approved the prior meeting minutes for the governance committee, and also talked about board member training, which we do need to have one member take the ABO training and several to do the refreshers. And we also reviewed the results of the confidential board survey. No other business, the meeting was adjourned. And with that, I will then turn it over to Amy Thompson for a CFO report. Amy.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'll start on page 7 of your packet with the balance sheet. Cash balance is roughly 10.4 million. Of that, we have 7.7 million invested in U.S. Treasury bills at a rate of roughly 3.5%. We also have accrued investment income on those Treasury bills of $66,000. The loans receivable balance at 9.7 million is all up to date. All loans are current. And moving down to liabilities, we have due to the Alliance, $293,000. Those are expenses incurred year-to-date May. So moving on to page 9, the budget versus actuals. Total operating revenues year-to-date May actuals are $284,000 versus budgeted amount of $334,000. This is mostly due to the $66,000 we have in accrued investment income, which will move to that investment interest line when the T-bills mature. Moving down to expenses, total operating expenses for the year are $245,000. We are under budget $190,000 for the year. And change in net position is a gain of $39,000 versus a budgeted loss of $120,000. Are there any questions on the financials?
Why are we under budget? It's great.
For expenses?
Yeah.
Shovel ready. So we haven't spent as much as we expected on shovel ready, which could change throughout the year.
Okay, is that due to like that slow down of?
It's mostly due to the
projects?
Altec steel site. We haven't spent as much money on that yet.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, also in your packet, beginning on page 10 is the Q1 voucher for expenses incurred by the Alliance that are due from the ACBDC. So for the first voucher, we have a total of $103,000. This includes $63,000 of salaries and fringe benefits, roughly $26,000 of professional fees, which include legal and audit, and then $13,000 other business expenses, which include rent, insurance, and other miscellaneous expenses. And then on page 11 is the shovel-ready site voucher, which year-to-date is $14,000, which is professional services and legal. Any questions on any of that?
Any questions, please? Not? Thank you.
Yeah.
With that, I'll turn it over to our CEO, Kevin O'Connor, for the CEO report.
Alan, if you just, before, I think we need an approval of the voucher.
Oh, sorry, you're right.
Just
Before I get, so is there a motion to approve the Q1 voucher to the Alliance?
So moved.
Is there a second?
second.
Second. Any other discussion? Not all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Kevin. It's been approved. Now we can turn it over to Kevin O'Connor.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. Apologies for the remote. I've got a bit of a head cold. I didn't want to subject you to my germs, but let me just give a quick run through of some of the more visible projects, many of which you've probably heard about or read about in the papers. But first, and probably the most important, is we're putting the wraps on the county's new strategic plan. Those of you who may recall, the county executive did this first economic strategy for the county back in 2019. Luke remembers this painfully well, probably, which led to everything that we've done since that time. Given the change in the environment, most notably that for the federal policy on alternative energy, our strategy has been significantly affected, and we thought it was just probably a good idea after 5 years to do a refresh. As you may recall, we hired HR&A, a very well-known consulting group. We did not bring Camoin back in, nothing against Camoin, but we just felt it would be good to have a different company, do a fresh, clean look on it. That plan is wrapping up. We have a we have a draft of the plan now, and we're going to be scheduling meetings with the boards of the various organizations who paid for it, which includes the ACBDC, the Albany County IDA, the Albany County Capital Resource Corporation, and of course the Advanced Albany County Alliance. So this is a significant change in direction for the organization. I think it's the next logical step in where we go, but it is a different plan than the one we've worked from over the last 5 years. And as you know, we've really stuck to our strategy, which is my plan going forward. All of the staff have had a chance to review the plan and are making comments on it. So, we expect that we'll do these briefings, of course, separate briefings with the county executive and chairman of the county legislature, and then roll this out. I expect that the county executive is probably going to do some public announcement that there's a press conference or something along those lines, but we'll keep everybody posted along the way. Any questions on the strategic plan?
Kevin, could you talk a little more about wind and particularly the court decision of yesterday and what our expectations are for those
Susan, I'm not
opportunities?
familiar with the court decision of yesterday, but our wind, the offshore wind manufacturing agenda was severely affected by the change in federal energy policy. As many of you know from hearing me make this presentation, we had over $2 billion of investment interest in offshore wind manufacturing at the ports of Albany and Clemens. We probably wouldn't have gotten all $2 billion of that, but we probably would have come close. GE alone was close to a $900 million manufacturing plant they were going to cite. And all of that came to a grinding halt, but not only for offshore wind, but for other alternative energy uses as well. Plug Power certainly felt the effect of that themselves. But, I see, most of the people in the know feel that offshore wind is not dead and gone, but it's just, it's on hold for the immediate future. There's been a lot of money spent on offshore wind, mostly by European and other foreign companies. There is a project underway off the coast of New York, and that's been the subject of some litigation. Governor Hochul has been pretty out front on moving that project along and has kept it going, but the industry by and large is kind of on pause. But Susan, I'm not familiar with the court case of yesterday. Did you
I
say?
believe the funding that the federal government was withheld had been challenged but was not released. And so the next level court upheld the decision to cause the release of that funding. Doesn't sound like people who, like us, who have been waiting for that funding are, jumping right back in, but kind of waiting to see what's going to happen and if there's some other way they can continue to block it.
Yeah, no, the ports of Albany, the ports of Freeman are really looking at their, individual strategies for port developments on their two facilities. And, hopefully, as if and when the offshore wind industry does start moving again, we have those facilities available. As you know, the Port of Albany developed the so-called Beacon Island site, which is a great site, and they're just out marketing it for everything and anything right now. That was initially done specifically for the offshore wind manufacturing. So hopefully that these uses in both these ports, well, at the very least, if not offshore wind, at least maritime related. I know the Port of Freeman's has made a determination that they will only entertain maritime related activities at their port. But the Port of Albany, I'm not so sure of. So, that is going to be something, I think the new strategy is going to focus a lot more on some of the other technologies, not the least of which being the semiconductor supply chain network, anchored by the New York Creates development up on Fuller Road. We've already started to kind of address that. I'll talk a little bit about that later. But, it's a different world now, as things change, and, we've just got to adapt and respond. I think, there seems to be a lot of focus on our cities, particularly the city of Albany. As you all know, Governor Hochul's so-called CAP initiative. We've got some projects down there, but, there are similar problems and challenges in Hose and Green Island and Water Polite that I think the Alliance may be able to play a role on going forward. But, we'll brief you all on that as we get around to the draft of the strategic plan, which I expect to be in the next couple of weeks. So moving on, you've all heard about the reuse, adaptive reuse of the McDonald's building down in the corner of South Pearl and Madison Avenue. We've, the county executive announced this earlier in the year, February, March of this year. He announced that the bus companies had approached us and asked us if we would consider selling them the building to build a bus terminal. In a meeting that we convened with the various officials from CDTA, New York State DOT, City of Albany Planning Department, and at times ESD, we felt it would be better if that was run by a neutral party. The two bus companies did not actually play well. They're both competitors with each other. And at their current locations, they split up with the Adirondack Trailways moving into a separate trailer. But both of the companies have to get out. They are being dislocated by the so-called Liberty Park development that the city's doing. And, we thought, and they thought that the McDonald's site would be a great location. We let out an RFP for a design build for the site. That was, we got 2 bids in response, and the Wayne Shaft group was chosen as a developer. And since then, we've had several public meetings on the project that are a little different than what you might be reading about in the newspaper. The consultants have gotten some good input there, but there are some neighborhood and county politics that I think have clouded the whole issue. We'll be continuing to talk to the public and educate everybody about the project. I think the most compelling argument here for this is that, the bus station is the third leg of the transportation stool coming into the city of Albany and in the capital region. If you come into our community by train, it's a relatively nice experience, clean, safe, friendly. If you fly into our region, very similar. It's a very nice facility. Again, clean, safe, and friendly. However, if you take a bus into our community, it is a deplorable, disgusting experience. It's ridden with vagrancy, crime. It's just, dirty. It's not befitting, an entranceway into the capital city of New York State. And with all of the people who've opposed, which are number probably about 10 or 15, it's the silent majority that you never hear about. But with all the people who oppose it, nobody has offered a suggestion as to what the McDonald's site should be, if not a bus station. So we're going to continue to go along on this. As you may know, Governor Hochul identified this project as a so-called gateway project into the city of Albany. This will be a highly designed facility, architecturally significant. It will include an Albany County Sheriff's Office there in the building. It will have 24-hour private security. It will have a retail offering as well as a reception space for passengers, for drivers, and of course ticketing windows for both. So, we're going along and we'll continue along this process until we get to the desirable outcome.
Question on that, Kevin?
So, I'm sorry.
Quick question on that, please. What's the deadline for the companies to leave the site they're currently at? For the Liberty Park development?
Susan,
Or about
I
how
don't
much
know,
time do
but
we have any
but
concept? How much time?
the city's economic development organization, Capitalize Albany, has an RFP out on the street, which I understand they have at least one viable opportunity. And I do happen to know that the governor's plan calls for making these developments move along pretty quickly. So I know the bus stations have been alerted. Two bus carriers, Adirondack and Greyhound, have been alerted that they have to move out of their locations, but I don't know the exact date, Susan.
Capitalize Albany's RFP is for the complete Liberty Park development or
That's
specific
correct.
to?
Yeah, the
Okay.
whole, it's a couple acre site down that encompasses those parking lots down there and the old Ecom Square buildings, if you remember those. But it includes the parcels that both the Greyhound and their Adirondack are presently located on.
Got it. And also, if this project is continuing to move forward, is there an additional plans for more community outreach and coordination with the neighborhoods?
Yeah, there is. We'll be holding another public meeting to share the plans that the consultants, the design build company has come up with based on the feedback they've gotten from the community. And we expect that to happen probably within the next several weeks to a month.
All right. That's an important point to make, I think, about the fact that the current site will no longer be available. I don't feel like most of the neighborhood is aware of that, and that we could potentially lose those bus services or have them move somewhere that is far less convenient for most of its downtown passengers. That would be helpful. And I know you've been trying to get messaging out and it's been very difficult, but the neighbors really feel that they have not been included in this. And so it's been hard to get back to some of that base planning and messaging.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that, despite, people are saying that, the environmental impact of this site is going to be, detrimental to the neighborhood. But keep in mind that this bus terminal is moving 500 feet from where it is today. There will be no more and possibly even less environmental impact than there exists now. All of these buses are equipped with an automatic shutoff if they've been idling for more than 5 minutes. Both companies have a policy that their drivers are supposed to shut their engines off if they're idling for more than 3 minutes. But, the bus companies will tell you that it is their, intense desire to not have buses sitting at terminals idling. They only make money when the buses are rolling along highways, moving passengers from point A to point B. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and we're doing our best to try to get the word out there, but, we all know how media works. If it, somebody once told me, if it bleeds, it leads. So the negative, controversial stuff seems to capture the headlines, and, those people who are quietly supportive of the project don't, wind up commenting in the newspapers and on social media and so on and so forth. So we just got to keep our heads down and keep going and hopefully get the project across the finish line.
If we can get somebody to the neighborhood meetings as well, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, Jeremy Smith in our office has been attending neighborhood meetings. He's had extensive meetings with leaders throughout the neighborhood, including South End Collaborative, a group of other, the various neighborhood associations, Mansion Hill. But again, those don't make headlines. Those don't show up in the papers. The people who call the papers and scream and yell and make accusations and refer to themselves as superheroes, tend to get the headlines. I'm not being cute there. That is in fact the case. So I think, this is the right thing to do on that site. We are not knocking the building down. We are, our county executive is the only elected official who's taken any initiative to try to do projects on this site for that neighborhood. As you recall, he encouraged the African American Cultural Center to go out and build a grocery store to address the food desert issues there. It didn't work out. And when he announced this project, it was an attempt to do something positive to this neighborhood. He has a real affinity to this neighborhood. He grew up in this neighborhood, and the papers accuse him of doing things for ulterior motives, and it's not just, I'm seeing it firsthand. It's not the case. He has a real, desire to do something for the south end of Albany, and he's the only one trying. I don't see anybody else stepping up and offering to do things at the McDonald's site or the College of St. Rose or Central Warehouse. There's an old saying, it's sometimes windier at the top of the tree. And that's where Mr. McCoy resides. He's at the top of the tree. So, but I think he's got the intestinal fortitude to keep going and see things happen for the benefit of that neighborhood and of the county.
Neighborhood outreach, please.
I'm sorry?
More neighborhood outreach, please, if we're gonna make this work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No.
Appreciate that.
And we have, the engineering firm that is part of the design build team. Labella is going to be ramping up the public outreach materials, and we'll be getting much more active on social media. But listen, I don't expect the media coverage to change all that much on this. It is the vocal minority that captures the headline. And, it is my opinion that this is the right project for this community here. This will be a clean, safe, and friendly experience for the bus riding public, the overwhelming majority of whom are lower income individuals. And there's no reason why they should be subjected to an inferior travel experience than those of us who come to this region or leave this region by train or by airplane. The bus terminal is horrible. There's no way to sugarcoat this. It is a horrible place. It's a miserable experience to go in and out of there. And it's just not befitting as a gateway to the capital city of New York State. If somebody has a different idea about what to do with the McDonald's site or a different place to put the bus terminal, I'm sure everybody would listen to that. I haven't heard it so far. I did hear somebody said we should put the bus terminal in the Empire State Plaza. I don't know what to do with that, to be honest with you. I don't know. I wouldn't even know how to get my head around that. I don't know if buses could fit under the Empire State Plaza, or if that's where it is, if there's a site, so.
They can't, and the engineers cleared that up at the last meeting. The engineers were very clear about that. A number of people suggested that in the turnaround area. And they said that the, while CDTA buses fit, trailways and Greyhound do not with the underpass.
So on to the Altech Steel site. Again, we want to thank you for all the support the ACBDC has provided. It is because of your support that we've been able to engage in this generic environmental impact statement process. As you know, we've hired McFarland Johnson. We've had a little bit of staffing change as it relates to the Altech Steel plant. Jeremy Smith, Senior VP for Real Estate, has now taken over the lead on that site. Clayton Besh has been redeployed to support our business attraction program, particularly as it relates to the semiconductor supply chain, and even further so as it relates to the 3 Japanese companies that are located at New York Creates, Rapidus, Tokyo Electron, and Screen. Clayton, you may not know, one of his many hidden talents is he is very fluent in Japanese language and culture. And, that is very important in dealing with Japanese business people. So, we've got great hopes of good things coming out of Clayton's redeployment to the, business attraction and foreign direct investment side. And Jeremy is the perfect person to put in there. As you know, he was the head of real estate for CDTA before joining the Alliance, and is very familiar with, large-scale redevelopment projects. This is the Altech Steel site redevelopment is a long-term project. Even though we've got a general commitment from National Grid to deliver up to 60 megawatts of power, the power issues there are still significant. One of our early consultants, Sandy Mathis, has been helping us through in that front, and we're confident that we're going to get through that. Originally we were thinking that this would be a large-scale manufacturing facility along the lines of what we're talking with offshore wind companies, which require transmission level power, meaning over 10 megawatts. But we may wind up, if we were able to get, for example, any of the semiconductor supply chain companies in there, they're not as large power users. They're probably sub-transmission level, which gives us a shorter, cheaper, and clearer path to getting the actual power delivered there. So, but we're working, very hard on that site. That is, in our opinion, the single best industrial site in Albany County because of the infrastructure serving the site. Lastly, but certainly not the least, is our skyscraper eyesore, central warehouse. We are working very hard on, our contractors are working very hard on remediating the asbestos. We've got the first 2 floors and the top 2 floors completely remediated. Unfortunately, this is work that nobody from the outside sees. Nothing in the building, the look of the building changes, but this is probably more than half of the cost of the entire demolition project. We are going to be looking at the actual demolition to start very quickly. We're waiting on some approvals from Amtrak to dismantle the train trestle going into the building. If you may recall, there's a kind of a steel train trestle that goes into the building that, rail cars used to go directly in. That'll be the first outward visible sign of the demolition. Then we'll see scaffolding on the south side of the building. And again, none of this is very dramatic or visually exciting. This building will not be imploded. A wrecking ball will not be used. This building will be nibbled away from the top down using mechanical and robotic machinery that's lifted up by hoists. Because the proximity to the active Amtrak rail station is that they will not let us do anything more aggressive in the way of demolition. So moving along, our plan is to have this down by first quarter of 2027, and we're doing everything we can to try to move that up. But right now that's what we're looking at. So, but I think within the next couple of months we'll start to see some visual, evidence of the actual demolition, which, the Department of Labor did give us the, a variance to let us start doing some demolition while we're still doing the environmental remediation. Making sure that everything, all safety precautions are kept in place. But, there's a lot to this, and what makes this even more complicated is the reconstruction of the rail bridge going across the Hudson River. Is that the Livingston Avenue Bridge? Yeah, Livingston Avenue Bridge. That, as you may know, is being rebuilt. And once rebuilt, the old bridge will be demolished. But this just caused a lot of staging and marshaling issues for the various contractors doing the work on our site, as well as the Livingston Avenue and the rail lines leading to and fro on both sides of the Hudson River for that. That's the bridge that the Amtrak, all west and north Amtrak rail service goes over, which is right next to our building. You can almost, you're riding on it. If the windows would open, you can almost touch the building by sticking your hand out the window. So that concludes my report. There's a lot of other things going on. Kevin will talk to you about an exciting project down in Queens next, but a lot of activity going on. And again, we appreciate all the support of the Albany County Business Development Corporation doing so. If there are no further questions for me, I'll hand it off to Kevin to go through our project today.
Thank
Kevin,
you.
just one quick question for me, Alan. I know a lot of people, some public opinion is like, well, it's a big site. Once the building comes down, what are we gonna do with it? But in terms of land, is it only like an acre or so that's that actual site for the central warehouse building?
Yeah, and Alan, that's a great point. It is a very small parcel, and there's plans, again, in Governor Hochul's plan that she had the big consulting group do. They've envisioned a much broader redevelopment project in that area that would in some way, shape, or form relate back to the waterfront development and maybe some of the historic elements of the Erie Canal. Apparently, the historic Lot 1 of the Erie Canal is right there. It's been buried, but it's down towards the modern press side of the site. So you're exactly right. There's a much broader development that has to take place in that part of town to make anything happen there.
But in terms of the county owning the site, it's only about an acre of land that the county owns, right, relative to that building?
Yeah, the county only owns the central warehouse site, correct?
Thank you. Thank you, Kevin, for your report. Kevin Catalano, turn it over to you.
Thank you. Before we get started, I just wanted to just go over, kind of a little bit of housekeeping on this. So when we refer to P&M Brick, Port of Queens, Queens Recycling Center, and Queens Industrial Park, we at the Alliance look at them as Carver companies, which encompasses both the port and the industrial park on the other side of the road. So just to kind of make that clear. Additionally, The Alliance, through our relationship with administering the IDA, is providing IDA benefits to them on the building. And we're going to be looking at a stage grant. That won't be until our July meeting of the Alliance board, but those are also part of this package. That's how much we want to support the Port of Queens and the Carver Company. So what we're looking at today is the Port of Queens has a new tenant, well, a tenant that has invested more into the port. A Projects is a logistics company that moves large industrial type equipment. They now have a US-based office at the Port of Queens. They took over Carver Company's former location when they moved up to the Curia campus, and they are going to build they've run out of space at the Port of Queens and at the Queens Industrial Park, and they are going to build a 75,000 square foot facility. Carver Companies will do that. A Projects will lease it. So that's what spurred this piece of equipment. But in talking with Nick Laraway at the port or at Carver Companies, they're going to use this piece of equipment will be utilized by A Projects between 30 and 40% of the time. They have other clients at the port that will use this equipment 30 to 40% of the time. And then they are looking at this as a huge growth opportunity because they are going to be expanding the lifting capacity of their equipment down there from about 90 tons to about 180 tons. So this is a really high-end, specialized piece of lifting equipment because the things that A Projects and the other folks down at the Port of Queens are moving are not the things you want to drop, right? It's not like a container full of, stuffed animals. This is very expensive, very technical, needs to be moved properly, and that's what the reason for this piece of equipment is. So when when Nick Laraway reached out, they were looking for $1 million on a $1.8 million purchase. 7-year term, fully amortizing. Typically, we do 5-year terms with 5-year amortization, but there's no reason not to support these folks. I did share the financial information with Alan. They have more than sufficient cash flow to pay this debt. But this would be a 7-year term, fully amortizing out. So at the end of 7 years, we don't need to renew. We just keep in touch. The rate will be 4%. We will get the personal guarantee of Carver Laraway. And the current bank that banks them is KeyBank, and Nick Laraway's already reached out to Joe Bucciero, their loan officer, to let them know of this transaction. We don't suspect any issue in effectuating a first lien on this equipment. What we're looking at is A Projects is probably, A Projects is going to add a few employees to their company, but more importantly, Carver and Carver Companies is going to be looking to add 18 employees. And if this company didn't stay at their facility, there could be some potential job losses. So we're looking at 28 jobs created and retained. And then when we had an economic development impact study done by Camoin for us, they estimated that in addition to the 28 jobs, there's another 14 jobs that will be affected in the community for a total of 42 jobs affected throughout Southern Albany County, but we're only going to be counting the 18 net new jobs. The Camoin study also noted that this project will add between employees and additional cargo and everything, just under $10 million of economic development stimulus in that part of the county. So, and what they do is it's a multiplier of salaries and then sales and all that stuff. So they're estimating about $10 million of economic activity for all the stuff we're doing here. Port of Queens, if you haven't been down there, it is incredible. Alan, tells the story about how he used to drive down and see a brick company, and then he drives by and sees nothing. And now he drives by and sees incredible economic activity going on down there. They are into the offshore wind. They're working with GE Vernova, I think it is. They have other components for other offshore wind. They're working in hydrogen. They're working in other power industries. So this is just, straight $1 million loan to support the operations of Carver Companies down at the Port of Queens and at the Queens Industrial Park. This is part of a larger project, which does include a $75,000 new shed building to store materials and to keep things out of the weather, out of the elements as they're staged for being shipped out. So we here at the Alliance love what Carver is doing down at the Port of Queens and Queens Industrial Park. And this is just a way to support them in, their current operations and future operations of the park.
We'll get the picture on the wall, so we.
Well, we have two. I think we have two. We have one here.
Yeah.
It should also be noted, but Alan remembers this, approximately 18 years ago, we did lend them $600,000 to buy the first big equipment for the stevedoring down there. And that was when they were just taking materials from New York City, bringing them up, processing them, and then sending them back down to New York City to be used in building. So they would take concrete, they'd smash it up, they'd send it back down and be stone. So we're coming full circle with this group. We can't seem to support them enough here at the Alliance, so.
And just to let the board know, Kevin did share with me that the debt service coverage on this entity, on this proposed transaction for the last 3 years is north of 2 times. So it's a very strong entity. The risk is low. The only thing is just making sure we can get the perfection of our security interest on the equipment, right? So
We are not worried about that at all. I'm very familiar with Joe Bucciero, have known him for 20 years. I think Madeline is familiar with the group at KeyBank.
Yeah.
We, and look, that's part of the deal. If we can't get the first, we don't close. But we are 100% confident.
are we going to try to get PMSI? Is that what we're going to try to do?
What?
Purchase money security interest on this?
Yeah, Madeline and I have had a couple different talks about that, and we've talked with Nick about it, and if we have to, we'll go to a closing and we'll write checks, we'll get their check, we'll send it off to the bank.
And they're going to fund all of it day one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Does anybody have any other questions about the project itself, Port of Queens? Luke, I know you have something that,
I'll just comment, it's great to see an investment in something that can serve multiple industries, including, the ones that you mentioned, and that I think can be a catalyst for continued growth at the port. I am going to recuse just because of NYSERDA has active, open solicitations related to ports right now, so I'll recuse for the vote, but
Thank
sure
you.
wanted to make a comment.
noted.
And we still have a quorum then for the vote, don't we?
Yes.
Okay.
So what we have is, in your packet is resolution 2006-0601, Albany County Business Development Corporation approving P&M Brick DBA Port of Queens loan application. The terms and conditions with P&M Brick LLC, DBA Port of Queens, principal amount of the loan $1 million, interest rate of 4%, term 7-year term with a 7-year amortization, the personal guarantee of Carver Laraway, first priority security interest a certain Tadano 16 XL crane and all related equipment, if any, meaning parts and other accessories that come along with that. So what we would be asking is to approve the resolution as presented, or if there's any modifications.
Any discussion or questions from the board on the resolution?
No, I think this is just a continuation of what I consider almost a miracle, what he's done down there in the last 25 years. And, most people don't know that, and that's good. There's a lot of activity going on, but it's done in a way that is almost seamless, so I'd be delighted to move it.
Yeah, I would as well. I mean, maybe it's a good idea at one point for the board to take a tour of the complex, because it's
We can
unbelievable.
we can arrange that anytime you'd like.
Okay. With that, is there a motion to approve the resolution? Thank you. Is there a second? Second. Any other comments or discussions on the resolution? With that, no, hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And one recused. With that, the resolution is passed.
Thank you, Chair.
Any other business to note of, any forthcoming applications, Kevin?
We're working on some, all still at this point confidential.
Right, thank you. So next order of business is kind of our meeting cadence. I think over the last 2 years, we've met because 6 or 7 times a year. Or 4, 5? Last year, 5 times a year, last 2 years. Sorry, I was 2 meetings ahead of myself.
Slowed so much.
But we're scheduled for 12 meetings a year. I want to just have a board discussion on what should be our cadence going forward. What we've done is we've scheduled monthly meetings, but then canceled them when there's no business to discuss or no applications. So I'll bring it to the board to discuss. We go to 6 meetings a year, bi-monthly, relative to the cadence, because considering that is consistent with what we've been experiencing the last 2 years in terms of meeting scheduling and actually having the meetings. As we move to, and you saw the example of this, a larger loan size relative, in the past, I know, Alan, there's been a lot smaller loans. So we're not seeing that volume now. We're seeing less volume, but larger loan deals and loan sizes. Does it make sense then our cadence change to once every 2 months or 6 meetings a year? I'll put it for the board for discussion. I mean, we can keep it at a monthly schedule and then flexibility, react accordingly. We could always, move items to another meeting following month for governance related items, for, financial related items like approving our audits and applications that may, have to be bundled in a month. So I'll leave it to the board to discuss, but, we've had 5 meetings the last 2 years, each year, right? So does it make sense then to modify the cadence?
I think it would make sense to go with six meetings. We're gonna have to have one in March,
Right?
for the audit. We're gonna have to one in the fall for the budget. And then, we can get Kevin out on the streets, and then we'll have more meetings.
And yeah,
We're just going to discuss this today, correct? We're not going to vote today, we're going to discuss.
This is just for discussion. We'll have to have a separate meeting for that.
yeah, and we did talk about the meeting cadence at our pre-meeting to this, and one of the things that we did discuss is we're coming down to the finishing touches on our strategy, which encompasses the whole alliance, including the ACBDC. So we're hoping that through the process of building out a strategy that there'll be more opportunities. So we're finishing that up now. We'll have to see where it lands, but we think that, there'll be other opportunities.
Right, so once we have that strategy plan, we'll have a better idea of strategically which direction we want to go. Maybe 6 is the right number, maybe 8's the number, we don't know. So just wanted to bring it up to the board, just, you've seen what the historical number has been. And we're scheduled for every meeting every month this year. So I will just have you think about it and we can discuss it once we get the strategic plan and have a more earnest decision about it in an upcoming meeting. And so is there any questions or comments on that?
Seems like every other month made sense. I personally, if there's an urgent item and we can get advance notice, I'm happy to, make an ad hoc meeting work. Because that would be the only concern about switching to that. So I think that's all doable.
Understanding that we have to be live. Right. And then whatever meeting we do, it's got to be live, right?
Yep.
So that's why we have these things scheduled monthly, just for that. We're not to saying we can't continue to do that, but understanding that we're really going to have X number of meetings. But again, we'll wait for our strategic plan to come out and then reconvene to discuss it. So with that, that's what all my discussion on that topic was going to be. Is there any public comments on YouTube or in person? No public.
No public comments.
Okay. With that, is there any need at all today to go to executive session? All right. Hearing none, then, is there any other items for discussion? All right. Hearing none, is there a motion for adjournment?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Kev.